The Norwegian knitting history starts here. This is a report from a trial back in 1634. And this is the first trace of knitting in Norway. This lady, Karen, was arrested because she had stolen some clothes. And she had a servant, Lisbeth. And Lisbeth had to knit her socks. This report tells us. The knitting history is very short, and the knitting came to Europe about 1100 after Christ. And it wandered through Europe and came to Norway, as we see in the beginning of the 1600s. We can go to the next picture, and you will see a family in the about 1860, 1870, with the clothes they wear at that time. As you can see, they all have stockings, and they are knitted. And the first 200 years with knitting, they almost only knitted stockings because it was very good to wear on the feet instead of woven stockings. And you can also see here that the little boy in the front has a knitted hat. But stockings and socks were the main thing they were knitting. On the next picture, you can see a pair of stockings from Setesdal. Until about 1850, the stockings were in just one color, but they could make patterns like this on it. And here you can see X and the O's, and that was symbols to protect the person who had them on. You might think these stockings are a little special because they are very wide on the top, and that's because in this valley it was very important to have big calf muscles, so they knitted the stockings like this and put apples and hay or something in it, so they would look even bigger than they were. The men used white stockings and the women black, but there was so little light to knit this pattern, so they had to knit them in white and then dye them afterwards. On the next picture, we can see some stockings from Telemark. And here you can see they have made really nice cables. And if you want to knit these stockings today, you have to use 1mm needles. And very thin yarn. They are really nice. On the next picture, there is another pair of these very nice cable stockings. But when we go to the next, you can see a man and his daughter taking a photo about 1860, 1870. They are wearing their very nice outfit, and they are going to the photographer, maybe because the daughter was immigrating emigrating to the US. But you can see he has stockings in two colors. And this is an early example of two-color stockings, also from Telemark. This is a black and white photo, but we know that these stockings are in blue and white. And if you see on the next picture, lots of stockings like this, about 6-7 pairs, made about 1850, are still in, you can find in Norwegian museums, and they have been knitted with blue and white. Maybe somebody was making these stockings for sale because there are so many of them, but we don't know. You can still make these for the national costume today. On the next picture, there is some stockings from Larvik, I think. It's not that important, but the pattern, I've seen it many places. In Norway, different places in Norway, in Sweden, and in Latvia. And that's not unusual, because when you see on the pattern on the left side, you can see exactly the same pattern. And this pattern was printed in 1529 by a man called Peter Quentel. When Gutenberg made it possible to print books about 1455, he first printed Bibles, and so did everybody else. But after some while, there was enough Bibles. So this Peter Quintel, he found out that he had to do something else to earn money. So he started to print patterns like this for weaving, for knitting, for embroidery, and other techniques. And they were really popular and are spread all around Europe. We can look at the next picture. Here you see another example of a pattern like this from the beginning of the 1500s. And if you take a good look at the pattern here, and we see at the next picture, it's not exactly the same, but you can see it's familiar. And this is what we will call typical Norwegian. It's in two colors, black and white, and it's pattern all over. So the patterns, they were wandering around in Europe, but we made them over our own in a way. These stockings belong to my father-in-law, and they were knitted by his mother about 1950. And he used them when he went skiing. It was very common to use long stockings when in the 1950s and when I grew up in the 1960s. On the next picture, I made the same pattern into socks, because there are very few wearing stockings like that today, but it is possible to turn it out to socks as well. And I've chosen other colors than black and white, but it's still only two colors. On the next picture, you can see a painting on top of a box. This was painted in 1805 by a painter called Hansson. And here you can see a scene where on the left side there is a man to be a groom, and on the right side it's the bride's father. And the man in the middle is the man asking about the bride. And they've agreed because they are drinking. So the deal is done. And you can see the groom on the left side, in his hands, he has a pair of mittens. And mittens were very often this kind of love gift. And on the next picture, you can see a pair of love gifts. And they are as old as 1772. And I think this is the oldest knitted garment that we have here in Norway. They are very beautiful. They are knitted in blue, or they have been dyed afterwards. But as you see, the decor is embroidery. They did as early as 1772. We don't know any knitting with two colors. But most textiles from this time are gone. They were worn out, or they became trash, and maybe they reused the wool, but there are very, very few things left. And love gifts are easier to take care of than things that have been broken and worn out. You will also see a love gift on the next picture. This is from Gudbrandsdal, and again you can see it's been embroidered. It's from the late 1700, probably, maybe beginning of the 1800, but one color and embroidery. On the next picture, here we have a pair of mittens in two colors. They are today at the Folk Museum in Oslo. I think they are very beautiful. As you can see, there is the same pattern inside and outside of the hand. They are a little worn out in the top, but you can still see the pattern with the 8-leaf roses very well. I've reconstructed these mittens. And you have to use very thin needles to do that here too. I had to go down to 1.5 millimeters and very thin yarn. On the next picture, here is also a very old mitten from 1858. We know because the letters LOS is on this one, but on the other mitten it says 1858. This is from Halden, near the Swedish border. And the pattern is very simple, and it looks like some English patterns we know. On the next picture, you see some of the mittens from Selbu in Norway. Selbu mittens are very well known. Black and white, 8-leaf stars, but also a lot of other patterns. They are the same, but they are also different. And Selbu is a small place west of Trondheim, and they've found nearly 600 different patterns of these mittens. The reason why we have so many mittens from this area is that there was a mine that had to close in the 1930s, and all the men who was working in the mine had to they had to quit, so they had to find something else to do. And until the 1930s, the women had been knitting and had sold their mittens. But in the 1930s, the men also started to knit to get income. The children knitted and old people, so both women and men and all whole families. And we know that in the middle of the 1930s, they could produce as much as 130,000 pairs of mittens in 1 year from this little place called Selbu. And they were sold all over Norway, and they were exported to south of Europe and even to the US. Because at the same time, winter sport got popular, and these mittens were very nice to use when you were go skiing. Because they are in black and white, and that was the colors from the sheep, we have called almost all mittens from Norway in black and white for Selbu mittens. But I'll show you some more mittens, and you will see they are not made the same way as these Selbu mittens are. We can take a look in the next picture. And here you can see typical Selbu mittens. The pair on the left side is for men. They have a pattern on the cuff that was not usual on the mittens for women, as you see on the right side. You always have a big motif on the outside and a small motif on the inside. And between the outside and the inside, there is a kind of edge. It's one black stitch, or black, white, black, as you can see here. And it's, so this is very typical for the Selbu mittens. All Selbu mittens are constructed like this. So when we look at the next picture, yes, this is a pair I've reconstructed. It's from Gudbrandsdalen. And here you see the outside and the inside of the mitten is the same pattern, just as the mitten from Oslo I showed you. When I found out that this was not a Selbu mitten, I wanted to look for mittens from other places in Norway. So I got some money from the Writers Union or something like that. I don't know how to translate it, but that made it possible for me to travel around in Norway to look for old mittens. So I had to use my vacation, and my husband had to go with me, but we visited 10 counties in the south of Norway, all counties south of Trondheim. And I found lots of different mittens, and they are collected in, you find it in one of my books. It's called Mittens from All Around Norway. We can take a look at the next picture. Here's another example I found when I traveled around. This is from Numedal, and as you see, it's the same pattern on both sides, both inside and outside. It's not a Selbo mitten. And these were also made on very, very thin needles, 1.5 millimeters. The problem when I reconstructed these mittens was to find yarn who was thin enough, and that didn't. You can always find thin baby wool, but it's not very good to use for mittens because they will not last very long. Oh, I'm sorry about my cold. We can look at the next picture. And this is a painting from about 1850. And you can see men fishing herring just outside Bergen. And the special about this picture is that you can see so many men wearing striped sweaters. And striped sweaters was quite common at that time all around the coast of Norway. We can look at the next picture. It's very difficult to find pictures of these old textiles because it was common to use lots of clothes. So here you can see two boys. They are also from the area around Bergen, and they have trousers, they have knitted socks, and they have a vest and a jacket outside the vest. But if you look carefully, you can see on the boy on the right side, he has a striped sweater under his jacket. And there's also some squares on the end of it. He also have a knitted hat. I love this picture because it's not only the two boys you see here at the first time, but if you look carefully, there's a third person between the boys. And I think he saw the photographer and wondered what this was and had to take a look. So he has been standing there while the photographer made his picture. You can go to the next. And here you see a little detail. So this is how I have been looking for knitted details when I was writing my big book about the Norwegian history of knitting. We can also go to the next picture. And here you see some workers out in the field. They look like prisoners. We've read about we all know this cartoons with prisoners in striped sweaters. These are not prisoners. They are working on a farm, and you see even the child on the left side has a striped sweater. As I said, the fishermen had striped sweaters, and you see the farmers also had striped sweaters. These are probably handmade, because when you look very carefully on the picture, you will see there are some, they are different, the small differences. We can look at another picture where we also see a striped sweater. These pictures are taken in the 1860s, and they are so sharp. If the people sit still, they had to sit still for nearly a minute to get this sharp picture. And you see the man on the right side. The knitting is, you can count the stitches when you see it, see the picture in the museum where I found it. But the little boy in the middle, he couldn't sit quite still, so he's not that sharp. If you look at the women, they also have knitted sweaters on or knitted arms. They have no stripes and no pattern. They are in only one color. I'll tell you more about the women garment later. We can go to the next picture. And this is a close-up from a shop in Bergen about the same time. And here are two shops. The photographer, he lived on the top of this building. And at the bottom, there were two shops. And you can see they have striped sweaters for sale. They are a little different, but you didn't have to knit them yourself. You could go and buy them. We don't know very much about these sweaters here. They can have been made in Norway, but they can also have been imported from Iceland, from the Faroe Islands, or Shetland maybe. We don't know. Yes, we can move to the next picture. And here we know the man in the middle. He's called Torbjörn. He lives in what is Bergen today, a place called Fana. And he is wearing a sweater we called a Fana kofte. The special about the Fana kofte is that it has stripes, but it also has small lice, as we call it, in the stripes. You will see that on the next picture, that these sweaters have stripes and small lice as well. There is another one on the next. These jackets and sweaters, they were both made as jackets and sweaters, were very popular about 1905. Until 1905, Norway were in a union with Sweden. Until 1814, we were a part of Denmark, and then from 1814 to 1905, we were in a union with Sweden. We didn't like that very much. So when we became our own nation in 1905, there were lots of men in the Bergen area that used these jackets or sweaters to show that they were real Norwegians. I think there is one more example of this Fana trøye. They are the same family, but still they are different. Usually they have these squares down on the bottom, and then the stripes with the lice, and always some 8-leaf stars as well. On the next picture, you can see some girls and boys in the 1950s. In the 1950s, they were very, very popular, especially after the Norwegian princess Ragnhild made one for herself and her fiancé after the war, Second World War. And they were used not only in Bergen, they became very popular all around Norway. And on the next picture, you can see it looks like the Fanakofte, but this is from Trondheim, a little longer north, up north. It's slightly different, but you can see they are connected. The special with this one is that it also have been red on the shoulders. On the next picture, you can see a Fanakofte I have made. I've followed the rules, but made my own design. Yes, and we can look further. And here you can see a working man, or it's a fisherman. You can see it because of his oilskin trousers. He is wearing what we call Icelander. And we can take a look at another picture. Here you also can see one on a painting. Most usually they were in black and white, or gray and white and but also in red and black. On the next picture, you can see how easy it is to knit this pattern. It's very, very simple. Lots of sweaters like this were imported. They were called Icelanders not only because they came from Iceland, but there was an Iceland company that was the only company to sell sweaters in Denmark, Norway. And the first sweaters like this probably came through this company. And that is maybe the reason for why they are called Icelanders. They might have been knitted on the Faroe Island too. But after a while, we started to knit like this in Norway too. And we have a factory on the western part of Norway at Ålesund called Devoll. And they've been producing a sweater like this since the 1850s, and they still are today. The factory today is not in Ålesund anymore. They have put the production into the Baltic countries, but they are selling it still from Ålesund. We can take a look at the next picture, and here you can see another fisherman in this sweater. They are very, very simple made. No raglan, not any big construction at all. And there is another picture, I think. Yes. I don't know if you recognize this man, but this is Fridtjof Nansen. He was the first man to cross the Greenland on ski. And he also went to the North Pole. And He was he always wear wool on his expeditions, and as you can see, he has this Icelander with a big hole. I don't know why, but maybe it's the same sweater he used when he crossed the Greenland or went to the North Pole. Um, we also have this other polar hero on the next picture. It's the man in the middle without the Icelander, but this is his crew. Roald Amundsen was the first man on the South Pole. I think that was much harder than going to the crossing Greenland and going to the North Pole. But he managed, and you see, they have Icelanders, and we know for sure that they were from the Devils, the same factory that are making these sweaters today, and they are sold all around Norway, and I guess they are exported too. We can take a look at the next picture, and here you see some small fragments. They were found inside a wall. They were used to make the house warmer around the windows. But this is typically pattern used in clothes for workmen. We can take a picture, look at the next picture, and you can see a sweater like this. This has both stripes and these small squares. I love it, but it's not a very nice jacket, but I love it anyway. It's so simple, and it's been repaired. And on the next picture, you can see a quite different jacket. This is very exclusive and much work to make this. And it says it's from 1846. It's pattern all over. On the next picture, you can see the man who owned it, or no, I think this was his son or grandson. I'm not quite sure. And on the next, here you can see the pattern again used in this jacket, and it's the same kind of pattern book from the 1500, but I've never seen anything like this in Norwegian garments ever since. This is the only example. So this pattern is used a lot in the Eastern Europe. So I don't know, was it made in Norway, or did it come from East or from Poland, or we don't know. Or maybe they got this pattern and could copy it. We can take a look at the next picture, and here you see what we call a 8-petal rose jacket, or only rose jacket as they were called. And these jackets were used when they went to church on Sundays. So this is not what they was wearing when they were working on the land or on the sea. This was for going to church. We have another one on the next picture. It's, as you can see, it's difficult to see that it's knitted because they have so much clothes on. Always the vest outside the knitted nice sweaters. This man also have a very nice hat that is knitted, and we know that from this district, it's one of the islands outside Bergen. They used lots of color in their hats. The sweaters are mostly black and white, but they could have other colors as well. Yes, on the next picture, we can see another example of a jacket like this. And as you see, there is no pattern at the bottom of the jacket. We don't know exactly why. Some use the jackets inside their trousers, but we also know that somebody used them outside. So it's not that they wanted to do less work. And we didn't have very much white sheep in Norway at that time. So it's not that the white wool was cheaper. So it might be that they didn't want to have a pattern about the nobler parts of their genitals. I see the time goes, so we have to go on. I'll just show you some nice old sweaters like this. You can take the next picture. And here is from Osterøy. I just want to tell you that they were knitted like a stocking. They didn't have a round. It wasn't possible to knit all in the round. So they knitted like stockings and cut it and sewed it together again. And on the next picture, you can see inside that it has been sewn together. Yes, we'll go on. These are sweaters from Nordfjord with lots of X and O's symbols to protect the people who were wearing it. We have some more examples on the next picture. Same family, but different. Yes, we can go on. This is the only one in red and black from this district, or they are all white and black. Yes, I think there is a picture of a man wearing it too, and you see the vest outside. On the next picture, we are going to Setesdal. This is a little drawing, and we can see the pattern on the shoulders. And you will recognize it on the next picture when we can see this is a typical sweater from Setesdal. This is what we call a lusekofte, a lice, because of the lice, all the small dots. We have some more examples on the next picture. And you can see they are all white at the bottom. And here they also have some embroideries around the arms decorated. We'll go on. And here you can see a family, and father himself has this lusekofte on. And on the next picture, you can see some happy boys drinking beer, maybe, all in this Setesdal's kofte. This kofte is very popular today. You can see the next picture. And here you can see children at school wearing it. I think they were dressed up because they were taking a photo. So they used it for nice occasions. And on the next picture, this is the first woman with a sweater with a pattern. Because the women were not allowed to use these sweaters, they were made for men. And this is taken in 1930, and it started a lot of noise in this valley when she made one for herself. But today it's really common to use it, both girls and boys, men and women. But originally the women did not have any pattern in their tops. Yes, on the next, this is my design from the same rules as they did. And we can take a close-up of the arm. On the next picture, you can see there are embroideries in lots of colors, mostly red and green and blue, but also some pink, and you add a little bit more. Yes, next picture. Yeah, here is one of my designs, a little bit more modern. We'll go through the next picture quite quick. Here you can see what the women were wearing: knitted arms and a vest. And we'll also see on the next picture, this is typical woman top. Vests are woven and the arms are knitted. They were made in mostly red and green, or they could be black or dark blue. There's an example on the next picture too. This is a little different because this has some patterns as well. This is from Sogn. And on the next, you can see a woman wearing it, as we saw a picture before. Yes. And the next picture, here you can see a green one. And also again, the body is woven and the arms are knitted, and then they are felted. So many times it's very difficult to see that it's knitted. Yeah. And the next picture, here you can see a girl with a green arms under. Yes. And now we take a look at the next picture. You can see some of my designs. I am very influenced of all patterns. So but I try to make my designs something you can wear today. We can just go quite fast through it. Maddie, you helped me with the pictures. Yes. This is from my latest book. I choose different yarns and other colors, but the pattern here I found on a really old sweater, just a part of it, and I used it all over the sweater. And the next, here are some mittens. I got some yarn from a friend of mine who have sheep, and I had to make some sheep mittens for her. On the next picture, you see some other mittens I've made. I've also used the same pattern on some socks. That's on the next picture. And I think there's one more picture now. Yeah. Um, if you, yeah, there's one on the end. Uh, Here you can see my Instagram, where you can follow me if you want or see what I make. I have some patterns in English on Ravelry, uh, and I have most of my books are translated into English, and you find them on the Amazon. Okay, thank you.
Oh, fabulous, Nina. That is just an incredible wealth of information that you just shared. Thank you. One question that has come up several times from folks is wondering about why women were not allowed to wear the patterned sweaters. Can you talk a
Uh,
little bit more about that?
I don't think they were not allowed to, but I think it was a tradition that
Ah,
the men wore the pattern. I have one old picture of a woman wearing a sweater with a pattern, um, but I think her husband died, so she used it because she didn't have any children. So she used it. So it was not. Uh, uh, I think it's a little more special in Setesdal when this girl made this sweater in 1930s, because they hadn't seen girls doing that before. It was something new. So yeah, I think it was tradition that women used these clothes and men used other clothes. They wear different uh, types of clothes.
So fascinating. We have another question about what they might have used as dye for the wool, for the red, blue, and green.
Oh, they use plants until the 1870s, I think. Mostly plants. Indigo for blue, um, uh, leaf, different leaves for the yellow, krap. I don't know the English name for red. It's root. But in the late 1800, lots of colors came from Germany. They were not very good because they didn't last very long until we got today's colors in the 1900 about.
excellent. Maddie, there's a couple questions from earlier in the slide deck. Could you flip to slide 18?
Yes.
Joanne was asking, in the picture of all of the black and white mittens from Selbu, there were several made with the same pattern, but the wrist portion was different. Is that
Yeah.
a nuance for men's mittens versus women's mittens, or is what would have been the reason for that?
Uh, on the uh, um, yeah, here you can see lots of men's mittens, and we know that the women mittens are in only one color or with only some stripes on it, and that the mittens for men, the cuff, have pattern. So it's just a tradition, I think. But it was different mittens for men and women. And women mittens also usually were longer. They went up on the arm. And that was also because they often used a shawl around
Uh,
with them, and then they got cold on the arms, so it was good to have long mittens.
mhm.
But the men had sweaters or jackets all the way down.
Good.
Fascinating. We
Two
have
slides later, Maddie, slide 20, Mary is wondering what the two-color cast-on is for the red and white mittens. And that feels like a very knitting technical question, but while we were in the
Uh,
neighborhood of these, how does the
I
cast-on
can
happen
you
for
can
these?
you repeat the question?
Yep. How does the cast-on happen for these mittens with the red and white when you're casting on with the yarn?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I see. Oh, that's a cast on with two colors. Um, I have I have just shown it on my Instagram konto.
Excellent.
You cast on with one time red and one time white, and so you get this pattern.
Excellent. And they can
Uh,
check your Instagram for more information about that.
yeah.
Wonderful.
While we're on the topic of mittens, we do have a question about how the cuff was made, especially the ones that kind of looked a little furry or fuzzy.
Oh yeah, that's um. It was quite usual earlier to have this. It. Uh, it looks like fur in a way, but you can just sew it around the needle sticks. And afterwards, you cut it up and you hold it over some boiling water, and it will sit and it get flushed in a way, if you understand.
Yep. Yep. Excellent.
Yeah.
Two questions have come in about the socks. The first one, the early socks that looked black, but you said they were knitted in blue. Is that closer to a denim blue, a royal blue, a navy blue? What shade of blue would have been used for those early socks?
Oh, it is indigo colored.
Indigo.
So
Excellent.
so it can be quite dark.
Yep.
Or yeah.
And then what kind of shoes would typically be worn with those socks that we were looking at early in the slides?
Maybe. uh, I guess some had some wooden shoes,
Yep.
but also leather shoes. I would think that was depending on how much money you had.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know very much about the shoes,
Yep.
but I know that in summertime, lots of people were wearing stockings without a foot because then they didn't get hole. They didn't wear it out in the summertime. You just had
Aha.
it on their legs.
Aha.
Yeah. So you save them for the wintertime.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We also have two questions that are about the initials on the sweaters.
Yeah.
Was it encouraged to put their initials on the sweaters, and is that something that would still be done today?
Not very often today. Um, I think this was some special places they did it, especially on the western part of the Norway we see it. But I just made a sweater for my son, and I have embroidered to Didrik from Nina in it and the year I made it. So nobody can see it but him. But it's a way to tell somebody when it's gone a long time.
Hmm.
That's so sweet.
And go for it, Maddie.
Sorry. And what order did they put the initials in? Was it first name and far name, or how do they determine the order?
Uh, I think it is the first name, and then you can see Lars for instance, L, and then Christiansen, son of Christian. So then you would have LKS, and maybe you could add another letter from the place you lived. If he lived on Røros, put the R after. So the letter, it's very often 4 letters.
Great. I know we are running out of time here, but there are a couple questions about the yarn. Was the old yarn thin with a tight twist?
Yes.
And is that
Yes, and it was homespun. And it was homespun. Yeah. Knitting yarn was not able to buy in Norway before after 1912. 1912 is the first knitting yarn you could buy, and it was still not usual until the 1930s, 1940s.
Got it. And is that thin, tightly twisted yarn, is that available for purchase easily today?
Yes and no. There are some small. We have these huge fabrics making yarn from for all Norway and for exporting as well, like Sandnes. But there are some small small, call it fabrics, that make special yarn and thin yarn, and the one the most and best you can it's Selbu spinnery. So if you look for Selbu and spinning, you might find it. They have lots of very special yarn that looks very much the same as the yarn they used before.
Well, Maddie, I think we probably have time for one more question, maybe?
I think so. Can we talk a little bit about the women's garments again, especially how they were attaching the knitted sleeves to the women's vests?
Yeah. Yes. It's much faster to weave than to knit. So that's why they have been weaving the body of the clothes. When you have a weave, you can produce meters of meters, but it's much better to wear on the arms knitted garment because they are not so stiff as the woven textiles. That's why they started to use knitted stockings, because they are more elastic, and so are the arms too. So that's the reason. So I think it was a kind of to save time to just have knitted arms and woven body.
Excellent. Well, I just have to say a huge thank you to you, Nina, for presenting today. Maddie, I'll let you do the wrap up, but it has been an absolute pleasure to get to be part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a good pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Nina. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.